The desert world of Arath was a land of endless dunes and scorching winds. Sand stretched far in every direction, glowing golden under the sun and whispering like waves when the wind passed over it. Life here was not easy. Only the strong survived, and only those who could bend the land to their will could hope to rule. At the top of all stood the emperor, a man whose word was law and whose pride was greater than the desert itself. In the palace of stone carved into the cliffs, the emperor's people celebrated the hatching of a new dragon. Dragons were rare and sacred, seen as gifts from the stars. Their scales normally shone in colors of fire, silver, or emerald. They were symbols of power, and every emperor claimed dragons as proof of his right to rule. But this dragon was not like the others. When its egg cracked, the creature that crawled out was pale, almost white. Its scales were faint pink where blood vessels lay beneath, and its eyes gleamed gold but soft, not fierce. The people gasped. Some whispered it was cursed. Others hid their faces in shame, fearing the emperor's anger. The emperor looked down from his throne, his face cold. He saw not a symbol of strength, but a mark of weakness. He called it ugly and unworthy. He claimed the stars had mocked him by sending such a creature. Though the dragon was young and helpless, he gave an order that shocked even his closest advisors. He commanded that the albino dragon be taken to the desert and buried alive beneath the burning sand. Soldiers carried the tiny dragon far into the dunes. Its cries were thin and weak, but they carried across the desert wind. The soldiers dug a pit, placed the dragon inside, and covered it with sand until no trace remained. None of them dared to disobey, for fear of the emperor's wrath. When they returned to the palace, they told no one what they had done. To the empire, the dragon had never existed. Days passed, and the sun blazed hotter than ever. Yet in the mining fields at the edge of the desert, a man named Aaron noticed something strange. Aaron was a foreman who guided a team of workers. His days were long, filled with heat, dust, and the sound of metal striking rock. He was strong, but he was not proud. He treated his men fairly, and they trusted him more than they trusted the officials who came from the city. One evening, as the sun sank red into the horizon, Aaron stood on the ridge above the mines. He listened to the silence of the desert. Then he felt a faint tremor under his feet. At first, he thought it was only shifting sand. But the ground pulsed again, almost like a heartbeat. He frowned and knelt, pressing his hand against the dune. The sound that followed was soft, like a muffled cry carried through layers of earth. Aaron rose quickly and looked around. The workers were already gathering to rest, too tired to notice. He said nothing, but his mind turned. That night, while others slept, he returned to the ridge with a small lantern. The stars above burned bright, lighting the dunes in silver light. The desert air was cool, but the sand still held the heat of the day. Again, he felt the tremor. Again, he heard the faint cry. It was not the voice of the wind. It was not the shifting of rocks. It was something alive, trapped below. Aaron could not explain why, but his heart pulled him closer. He found himself digging with his hands until they ached, though he knew it would take more than one night to uncover the source. The desert kept its secrets well. But Aaron was not the kind of man to turn away once his curiosity was stirred. He returned the next night, and the next, carrying water and tools to help. Each time, the cries grew clearer. It was as if the hidden creature was calling to him, begging not to be forgotten under the sand. He did not yet know what he would find. He did not yet know the truth of the emperor's order, or that the buried creature was unlike anything he had seen. But deep in the desert, a story was waiting to rise. A pale dragon still lived beneath the dunes, weak but breathing, waiting for the one who would dare to save it. And without knowing, Aaron had already begun the path that would change the desert forever. The desert sun rose again, bright and merciless, spreading its fire over the endless dunes. Aaron and his workers began another long day at the mines. They dug deep into the hard stone, searching for crystals and metals that the empire demanded. The sound of picks striking rock echoed through the valley, while sweat ran down their faces and sand clung to their skin. To the men, each day felt the same. Work until the sky turned red, rest through the night, and repeat. But for Aaron, the nights had changed. Since the moment he first heard the muffled cries under the dunes, he had been restless. Every evening, when others slept, he slipped away with a lantern and returned to the same ridge. There, he listened for the strange sound. And each time, the faint call rose again, as if the creature below remembered his presence and reached out for him. Aaron could not ignore it. His heart told him something was trapped and suffering. He was not a man who turned his back on suffering, no matter if it came from man or beast. At first, he used only his hands to dig. The sand burned his skin, but he did not stop. After several nights, he brought a small shovel. He worked carefully, fearing that too much pressure might crush whatever was below. Sometimes the sand collapsed back into the hole, undoing his effort, but he never gave up. The workers began to notice his tired eyes and slower steps during the day. "Foreman," one of them said, "you are not resting enough. The sun will take your strength." Aaron only nodded and told them not to worry. He kept his secret close, for he knew many would call him foolish for chasing voices in the sand. One evening, while digging, he felt the ground shake more strongly than before. The sand shifted beneath him, and he nearly lost balance. Then came a long, low sound, like the roar of a creature in pain. Aaron froze. The cry was no longer faint. It was close, very close. His heart pounded. He leaned down and brushed away sand with his hands, and for a moment, his fingers touched something hard and rough. It was not stone. It was not wood. It was something alive. He pulled back quickly, his breath sharp, but then he leaned forward again. The surface under the sand was smooth, like scales. He could not see it fully, but he knew without doubt that it was a creature. The next night, he brought water with him. He poured some into the sand near the scales, hoping it would reach the creature. Then he worked harder, digging wider. Soon he uncovered part of a pale, cracked wing. It shimmered faintly in the moonlight, almost glowing against the dark sand. Aaron's eyes widened. He had heard of dragons, but never seen one with his own eyes. To see one buried here, gasping for life, filled him with awe and fear. The dragon did not attack him. Instead, it blinked slowly, its golden eyes dim but steady. Aaron felt the weight of that gaze. It was as if the creature was pleading silently. He whispered, though he did not know if the dragon could understand. "I will not leave you. I will try to help." From that night onward, his mission grew. He carried buckets of water and scraps of food. He knew dragons did not eat as men did, yet he thought perhaps the moisture and scents would give it strength. He dug until his arms ached, until blisters formed on his hands. When he returned to the camp at dawn, he washed the dirt from his clothes so no one would notice. Still, suspicion grew. One worker asked, "Foreman, why do you vanish at night? Are you meeting smugglers? Or hiding treasure?" Aaron laughed softly to hide the truth. "The desert has many secrets," he said. But treasure is not one of them. Inside, he felt torn. The more he uncovered, the clearer the truth became. This was no ordinary dragon. Its pale body and golden eyes marked it as something rare. He remembered the whispers about the emperor's cursed offspring, a dragon buried in the desert. Could this be the same one? If so, then saving it would be dangerous. The emperor would never forgive anyone who defied his will. But Aaron's heart would not allow him to stop. Each night, when he looked at the dragon's tired form, he felt pity and respect. The creature was weak, yet it still lived. Buried in heat and sand, it had survived where few could. That was not weakness. That was strength. By the end of the week, he had cleared enough sand for the dragon's head and part of its body to rise free. It lifted its neck slightly, stretching toward the night air, and released a quiet sigh. Aaron smiled for the first time in many days. "You will not be forgotten," he whispered. "Not while I breathe." In the silence of the desert, under the watchful stars, a bond had begun to form. Man and dragon, both trapped in the harsh rule of the empire, now shared a secret that could change everything. The desert winds blew hard that night, carrying grains of sand that stung Aaron's face as he worked. The sky was clear, with countless stars shining above, yet Aaron barely noticed their beauty. His eyes stayed fixed on the pale figure he had uncovered from beneath the dunes. The dragon's body was still half buried, but more of it now showed each night. Its scales glowed faintly under the moonlight, almost like silver touched with rose. Aaron worked slowly, brushing the sand away from the dragon's sides. Each time the creature breathed, its chest rose weakly, as though every breath was a battle. He poured water near its mouth, and the dragon licked the moisture from the ground with surprising care. Its golden eyes never left him, following his every move. At first, Aaron had thought the dragon was too weak to understand. But now he noticed something strange. The creature seemed to respond when he spoke. If he whispered gently, the dragon blinked slowly, as if listening. If he pointed to water, the dragon turned its head toward it. Aaron began to wonder if there was more intelligence behind those glowing eyes than anyone in the empire imagined. "Can you hear me?" Aaron asked one night, crouching close. The dragon tilted its head, a faint rumble echoing from its throat. It was not anger. It was more like recognition. The more Aaron uncovered, the more amazed he became. The dragon's wings, though weak, stretched wider than the length of 3 men. Its tail, pale and scarred, curled in the sand like a fallen banner. Its scales were soft in some places from heat, but beneath the weakness Aaron could see strength waiting to return. One evening, after a long day of mining, Aaron came back with a sharper tool to cut through harder packed sand. As he dug near the dragon's foreleg, he noticed the creature moving its claws slowly in the ground. At first, he thought it was trying to escape, but then he saw the lines it left behind. The dragon scratched shapes into the sand. Not random marks, but simple patterns. Aaron froze, staring. The dragon paused, then scratched again, drawing a circle and a line beside it. Aaron crouched, puzzled. "You are trying to speak," he whispered. Carefully, he copied the circle with his finger. The dragon blinked, then repeated the mark, this time clearer. Aaron's heart pounded. This was not a beast acting without thought. This was a mind trying to reach him. Night after night, they repeated this strange game. The dragon would draw shapes, and Aaron would try to answer. Sometimes it drew lines like water, and when Aaron poured water, the dragon lowered its head gratefully. Sometimes it drew something like the sun, and when dawn came, it would close its eyes in pain from the heat. Aaron began to realize that this creature was different from the dragons he had heard about in stories. The tales spoke of fire, of rage, of destruction. But this dragon seemed gentle, patient, and above all, intelligent. Its pale body may have been seen as ugly by the emperor, but Aaron saw beauty in its mind. Still, the danger of discovery weighed on him. One evening, as he finished covering his tracks around the pit, a worker from the camp appeared on the ridge. "Foreman," the man called, "why do you wander here at night? You are too far from the camp." Aaron forced a smile and said, "The desert air clears my head after a long day." The man nodded but looked suspicious. Aaron knew he would need to be careful. If anyone reported strange behavior, soldiers could come, and the dragon would not survive another attempt at burial. Despite the risk, Aaron could not stop. Each night, his bond with the dragon grew. He even gave it a name in his thoughts, though he never spoke it aloud. To him, the dragon was no longer a nameless creature. It was a life worth saving, a life that trusted him. One night, as the moon rose high, Aaron brought a full jar of water and set it by the dragon's mouth. The creature drank deeply, strength returning to its golden eyes. Then, slowly, it stretched one wing, lifting it higher than before. Sand poured down its sides, revealing more of its body. Aaron watched in awe. The dragon was healing, and it was because he had chosen not to walk away. The thought stirred him deeply. He remembered the emperor's pride, the whispers of a cursed albino dragon, and the cruelty of leaving such a creature to die alone. Aaron knew now that the emperor's judgment had been wrong. What the emperor called weakness was, in truth, hidden power. As dawn painted the horizon red, Aaron stood by the dragon and whispered, "You are not a curse. You are hope. I will not let you fall back into the sand." The dragon lowered its head, eyes glowing softly, as if it understood. And in that moment, under the rising sun, Aaron knew the desert was no longer only a place of hardship. It was the beginning of something greater, a discovery that could change not only his life, but the fate of the empire itself. The desert was cruel by day, but at night it turned into a place of quiet wonder. The stars filled the black sky like countless lamps, and the cool wind swept softly across the dunes. Aaron found himself waiting for those hours more eagerly than ever, for they brought him back to the pale dragon he had uncovered. The creature was no longer only a shadow beneath the sand. Its head, wings, and part of its body were free now. Each night, Aaron dug carefully, carrying away the heavy sand with his hands and a small shovel. He worked silently, always watching the horizon in fear of being discovered, yet his heart grew lighter whenever the dragon's golden eyes opened to greet him. One night, after giving it water, Aaron sat beside the creature and simply rested. He looked at the patterns of stars above, then at the dragon's claw marks in the sand. "You are not like the dragons of stories," he said softly. "You do not breathe fire, you do not roar with rage. You wait, you endure, and you watch. You understand more than anyone gives you credit for." The dragon blinked slowly, as if agreeing. Then it lowered its claw and began to scratch again in the sand. This time, the lines formed something like waves, flowing downward. Aaron studied it carefully. "Water," he guessed. He pointed at the mark, then at the jug he carried. The dragon gave a quiet rumble and moved its head closer. Aaron poured the water into a small trench and let it run toward the dragon's mouth. The creature drank, but more than that, it seemed pleased that Aaron had understood. Night after night, their silent language grew. The dragon made marks of circles for the sun, wavy lines for water, arrows for movement, and spirals for the stars. Aaron responded by copying the marks, adding his own, and watching how the dragon reacted. Soon, their exchanges became a kind of conversation. It was slow and clumsy, yet each success filled Aaron with wonder. The dragon was lonely, that much was clear. It had been abandoned, buried, and forgotten. Aaron could see the sadness in its eyes, a longing for connection. He felt the same, for though he had men under his care in the mines, he often carried the weight of leadership alone. With the dragon, however, he felt something different. Here was a being that trusted him, not because of rank or duty, but because he chose to stay. As the days passed, the dragon began to grow stronger. Its wings twitched more freely, and its breathing grew steady. Once, it even lifted its head high enough to gaze across the dunes, its eyes glowing like lanterns in the dark. Aaron's chest filled with pride. "You are rising again," he whispered. "The desert tried to bury you, but it did not succeed. But strength brought danger as well. If the emperor's men saw the creature, they would surely try to finish what had been started." Aaron began to think more carefully about how to hide the dragon during the day. He dug shallow trenches to guide sand around it and covered parts of its body with cloth from the mines. He ordered extra work near the ridge to make it seem like mining activity, hoping to keep curious eyes away. Even with the risk, Aaron felt joy unlike any he had known before. The dragon was no longer only a creature he had rescued. It had become his companion, his secret, his silent friend in the desert. He gave it a name in his thoughts, though he never spoke it aloud to anyone. He called it Solon, after the sun that burned over their world, because just like the sun, the dragon gave light even in weakness. One evening, as Aaron rested by Solon's side, he placed his hand gently on the pale scales. They were warm, and though cracked in places, they carried a faint pulse beneath. The dragon did not pull away. Instead, it lowered its head, pressing its snout gently into the sand beside him. For the first time, Aaron smiled not only with relief but with true happiness. The bond between them was no longer uncertain. It was real, deep, and unbreakable. Still, doubts troubled him. "If the emperor learns you live, he will not forgive either of us," Aaron said quietly. "But if I do nothing, the desert will claim you again. Perhaps we can find another way, a way where you may live without fear." The dragon lifted its head and scratched a mark in the sand, a spiral with a line through it. Aaron stared at it, puzzled, until he realized it was the same mark the dragon had drawn when showing stars. Was it speaking of the future, of hope beyond the desert? He did not know for sure, but the thought stirred him deeply. For now, he knew only one thing: he could not abandon Solon. The emperor's pride had cast the dragon away, but Aaron's loyalty would keep it alive. Together, under the endless sky of Arath, man and dragon had formed a bond that no desert wind could erase. And though neither yet knew it, that bond would soon be tested in ways greater than either imagined. The days in the desert grew hotter, and the workers in the mines grew weary under the burning sky. Aaron worked beside them, though his thoughts often drifted to Solon, the pale dragon hidden among the dunes. Each night, Aaron gave water and comfort, and each night the dragon grew a little stronger. The bond between them was no longer only survival. It was trust. But trust was fragile, and danger approached. One morning, a messenger arrived from the city. He carried a banner marked with the emperor's seal, a sign that made even the bravest men tremble. The messenger spoke loudly, so all could hear. "The emperor himself will come to the mines. He wishes to see the progress of his workers and claim the riches of this desert with his own eyes. The workers bowed their heads. None dared to question why the emperor would travel so far. But Aaron's heart sank. If the emperor came, he might pass near the ridge. If he looked too closely, he would find Solon. The dragon had survived the sand, but it would not survive the emperor's pride. That night, Aaron sat beside Solon and told him what he had heard. The emperor is coming. He must not find you here. If he sees you, he will call you a curse again and order your death. Solon lowered his head, his golden eyes dim with sadness. He scratched in the sand, making a spiral broken in the middle. Aaron understood. The dragon feared that their bond would also break under the emperor's shadow. The next days were filled with worry. Aaron worked harder in the mines, guiding his men so the camp would look busy and productive. He wanted to give the emperor no reason to wander from the main path. Yet each night, he still visited Solon, hiding his steps and brushing away signs of his digging. On the third night, something happened that surprised him. When he poured water into the trench for Solon, the dragon touched the sand with its claw. The grains shimmered faintly, then shifted as if pulled by hidden energy. Before Aaron's eyes, the sand grew wet, and from it rose a small stream of clear water. He gasped, staring in wonder. You made this," he whispered. Solon gave a low rumble, almost like a gentle laugh. He scratched waves in the sand again, repeating the mark for water. Aaron's mind raced. The desert was a land of thirst, where water was more valuable than gold. If the dragon could pull water from the dry ground, then Solon was no curse. He was a gift greater than any treasure. The next morning, Aaron stood among his men as the emperor's caravan arrived. Golden banners waved in the wind, and armored guards marched in rows. The emperor himself rode on a high carriage of black stone, his face stern, his eyes sharp. The workers bowed, pressing their heads to the sand. Aaron bowed as well, but his thoughts burned with fear. The emperor walked through the camp, questioning the overseers, inspecting the crystals and metals gathered from the mines. His voice was cold and commanding. "The empire grows thirsty for wealth," he declared. "You must dig faster. The desert must yield all it hides." Aaron clenched his hands, but said nothing. He dared not speak of Solon. Yet his heart knew that the emperor's hunger for power would never end. If the emperor discovered that the pale dragon had survived, he would call it a threat. That night, Aaron returned to Solon and sat in silence for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "You have a gift the emperor does not deserve. You can give life to this desert, not death. If the workers knew, they would see you as a blessing. But if the emperor learns, he will try to destroy you again." Solon looked at him with steady golden eyes, as if asking him to choose. Aaron felt the weight of that gaze. For years, he had followed orders, worked hard, and kept peace among the workers. But now he faced a choice greater than any before. To remain silent would keep him safe but leave the dragon in danger. To act would mean risking everything. The next day, as the emperor prepared to leave, Aaron made his choice. He called the workers together at dawn, away from the guards. "You know the desert is dry and cruel," he told them, his voice low. "But I have seen a power that can change it. A power not of stone or crystal, but of life itself." The workers frowned, uncertain. Aaron continued, "Follow me tonight, and I will show you. But you must swear silence until you understand." That night, under the stars, Aaron led a small group of trusted workers to the ridge. With careful steps, he revealed Solon. Gasps filled the air. Some stepped back in fear, but others stood in awe. When Solon touched the sand and drew forth water, their fear melted into wonder. They knelt, not in fear of a curse, but in gratitude for a gift. Aaron's heart swelled. The bond he shared with Solon was no longer his alone. Others now saw the truth. The emperor's judgment had been wrong. This dragon was not a mark of shame. He was hope for the desert, a hope worth protecting even against the will of the throne. The desert morning was hot, and the workers at the mines moved slowly under the blazing sun. But in the heart of the dunes, a quiet excitement grew. Aaron knew the time had come to show the world the true value of Solon, the albino dragon who had been buried and left to die. Solon rested in a small clearing Aaron had prepared. Its pale scales shone in the sunlight, and its golden eyes glimmered with intelligence. The dragon had grown stronger over the weeks, its wings now fully stretched and its tail moving freely. Aaron could feel its quiet power. This dragon was no longer weak. It was ready. The workers gathered around, whispering among themselves. Many had helped Aaron secretly, bringing water and food, clearing sand, and watching for danger. They knew the emperor could return at any time. If the emperor discovered Solon, he would not hesitate to destroy the dragon again. But the workers trusted Aaron, and they had come to believe in Solon's gift. Aaron stepped forward. "The desert is harsh," he began, his voice calm but firm. "We all know how little water we have. We know the sun can burn the skin from our backs and dry the ground to dust. But there is hope. This dragon, abandoned and thought weak, can give life to the desert. It can turn sand into water, and it can do what no man or machine has ever done." The workers watched in silence. They had heard of dragons, but no one expected to see one, much less a pale creature capable of giving water to the desert. Aaron motioned toward Solon. The dragon stepped forward and lowered its head to the sand. Its claw touched the ground, and slowly, clear water began to flow. It was not much at first, just a small stream, but it ran steadily, gleaming in the sunlight. Gasps of arose from the workers. Some knelt to touch the water. Others whispered prayers of gratitude. Aaron smiled, but he knew this display would not be enough for the emperor. When the ruler returned, he would demand proof of the dragon's power. They needed more than a small trick. They needed a demonstration that could not be ignored. Solon seemed to understand. The dragon spread its wings, the pale membrane catching the sun, and lifted higher than ever. With one claw, it struck the sand, and another stream of water burst forth, flowing in a larger arc. The workers stepped back, shielding their eyes from the sunlight reflecting off the scales and water. Aaron watched proudly. Solon was not a curse. Solon was a miracle. That afternoon, the distant sound of hooves echoed across the desert. Aaron looked up to see the emperor's caravan approaching. Guards and officials rode in straight lines, banners fluttering in the wind. The emperor himself was stern, his face unmoving as he scanned the land. He had come to inspect the mines, unaware that the very thing he had condemned now awaited him. Aaron felt his heart race. He whispered to Solon, "Show him the truth, but stay calm. He must see what you are, not what he wants you to be." Solon lifted its head and made a low, steady rumble. The dragon's golden eyes fixed on the approaching caravan. When the emperor arrived at the clearing, he stopped in disbelief. Before him was the pale dragon, fully grown and strong, with streams of water flowing from the sand at its touch. The workers bowed, some trembling, but Aaron stood tall. "Your Majesty," he said clearly, This is no curse. This dragon has been called weak, but it has given life to the desert. It has given hope to us all. The emperor's face tightened, his pride bruised by what he saw. He lifted a hand to speak, but the sight of the flowing water stopped him. Streams ran across the sand, forming small pools that reflected the sunlight. Soldiers and workers alike gazed in awe. Solon stepped forward again, wings spread wide, and touched the sand with a claw, causing another stream to appear. Aaron realized something important. The emperor had power, but Solon had something greater. The dragon had patience, intelligence, and a gift that could benefit the people. No decree or command could erase that. The workers began to cheer quietly, then louder, praising Solon and recognizing the gift that Aaron had nurtured. For the first time, the emperor felt something he had not expected. Admiration turned to humility. His pride, which had demanded the dragon's death, could not deny the truth. The albino dragon, once thought ugly and weak, had proven its worth. Aaron stood beside Solon, a foreman who had chosen courage and loyalty over fear, and he saw the change in those around him. That day, the desert itself seemed to breathe with relief. Water flowed where it had never flowed, and hope spread through the workers' hearts. Aaron smiled at Solon, and the dragon rumbled softly, as if returning the smile. Together, they had made a stand not with violence, but with truth, patience, and the courage to act when others would not. And though the emperor remained proud, he could no longer ignore the gift before him. The desert had changed, the dragon had lived, and humans had proven that even in a harsh world, loyalty and wisdom could triumph over fear and pride. The desert of Arath was no longer silent. Water flowed in small streams between the golden dunes, bringing life to a land long thought harsh and unforgiving. Aaron walked among the workers, his steps lighter than ever, and beside him moved Solon, the pale albino dragon, fully healed and strong. The bond between them had become unbreakable. The workers had begun to build small gardens near the streams, planting hardy plants that could survive the desert sun. They laughed and worked together, their faces bright with hope instead of worry. What had been a place of exhaustion and fear had become a place of growth and opportunity. Aaron watched proudly, knowing that this change had begun with trust, patience, and a choice to act when others would not. The emperor had left quietly after seeing Solon's gift. His pride was bruised, and though he still claimed authority, he did not interfere with the dragon or the people. In his heart, he knew that what he had witnessed could not be undone. The albino dragon, once called weak and ugly, had proven that appearances did not define true power. Solon had become more than a creature of survival. The dragon now moved freely among the dunes, lifting its wings high, sometimes flying just above the streams it had helped create. Its golden eyes seemed to watch over everyone, filled with wisdom and kindness. Children who came to play near the water would laugh in delight, and even the oldest workers would smile as the dragon brushed past them gently. Aaron often stood near Solon, speaking softly. "You are not only my friend," he said one morning, "you are the guardian of this desert. You have changed lives, and you have shown everyone that hope can grow even in the harshest places." Solon lowered its head and nudged his shoulder, a quiet acknowledgement of their partnership. Word of the dragon's power spread slowly across the empire. Traders and travelers came to see the streams in the desert, bringing news and stories. Many were surprised that such a creature could exist, yet none could deny the truth they saw with their own eyes. The workers were proud, not only for the water that now made their lives easier, but for the courage that Aaron had shown. One man whispered, "If we had all followed the emperor's orders blindly, we would have lost everything. But because one man chose to act, life returned to our land. Aaron never took credit. He preferred to stay among the people, teaching them how to use the water wisely and how to live in harmony with Solon. Yet every night, when the desert grew quiet and the stars filled the sky, he would sit by the dragon and feel a deep sense of peace. He remembered the first night he had heard the muffled cries from beneath the sand. He remembered the fear and uncertainty. And now he smiled, for those nights had led to a new beginning. Solon's scales seemed to glow faintly under the moon, and the dragon would stretch its wings and flap gently, sending soft waves of air across the sand. Aaron noticed how the streams reflected the dragon's pale body, shimmering like light across moving water. To anyone else, it might have seemed magical. To Aaron, it was a testament to life, resilience, and the bond between man and dragon. Years passed. The desert became a place of balance. Plants grew along the streams, animals returned to drink, and humans learned to work with the land instead of against it. Stories of the albino dragon spread across generations, but Aaron taught the people the truth, that it was not the dragon alone, nor the Foreman alone, but their bond that had brought hope to Arath. Solon, once weak and abandoned, became a symbol. Not of fear or pride, but of patience, trust, and quiet strength. The dragon reminded everyone that being different was not a weakness. In fact, being different could be the greatest gift of all. Aaron's leadership, gentle but firm, showed that courage was not only in battle but in choosing to do what was right even when it was difficult. In the evenings, children would gather around Solon, touching its scales lightly and watching the dragon demonstrate its gift of water. They laughed and ran along the streams, while adults worked in harmony with the land. The empire's soldiers rarely came now, and the emperor, though distant, allowed the desert to thrive. Peace had been earned not through force, but through wisdom and care. Aaron often looked at the horizon, the dunes stretching endlessly under the setting sun. He thought of the days when he had dug through the sand, when fear and uncertainty had pressed down on him like the weight of the desert itself. And now, with Solon beside him and life flowing through the desert, he felt a deep joy he had never known before. The legacy of the albino dragon was not just the water, the plants, or the thriving desert. It was the proof that even the smallest, most unexpected life could change the world. It was the reminder that loyalty, trust, and courage could triumph over pride and cruelty. And it was the story that would live forever, in the hearts of the people of Arath, and in the golden eyes of a dragon who had once been buried but now soared above the desert as its true guardian.